Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reading an article that came out a couple of hours ago. FBI is investigating a Christian pregnancy center in Colorado that was set ablaze and vandalized with pro-choice messages hour after the Supreme Court ruling. Now, if you don't like the Supreme Court ruling, then you have to, through reason, logic, debate, discourse, discussion, form a compelling argument against, let's say you're in a red state, against Republicans in your state. You do not engage in criminal activity that you accuse Trump of, that Liz Cheney and Kinzinger and Democrats have accused Trump of, in which, by the way, he was never charged or indicted because they have no evidence that he told anyone to do anything criminal. But this is taking place now, and it's despicable. It's taking place in Buffalo, it's Madison, Michigan, now Colorado, and there are Christian or religious organizations that are pro-life organizations that have buildings, pregnancy care centers that offer women a different viewpoint or a different option. Okay, remember we like options and freedom and choices. Well, they offer women a different choice. Okay, it's not these Christian pregnancy centers that made the Supreme Court ruling. It's the Supreme Court looking at the Constitution and saying, yeah, this procedure is literally never stated in the Constitution, nor is it alluded to. Nor is it alluded to. Or is there any part in the Constitution that can be interpreted as, enforcing this on a federal level? So it goes back to the states. Okay? And that's what the Supreme Court decided. Now you have Democrats and media sensationalize everything that takes place. If there's a criminal act that conservatives or Republicans are linked to in any way, shape, or form, it is, oh my God, our democracy is at stake. They're trying to ruin, our way of life. The rule of law is at stake. It's Trump. Trump should be indicted and charged. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings set ablaze with incendiary devices or with people just committing the most heinous act of arson. And the FBI is now involved. You might roll your eyes and say, oh, they're not going to do anything. They're aligned with the Democratic Party, which is true. They are. But they have to. This is actually what they exist for. The Federal Bureau of Investigation exists to protect the country and to protect individuals from this type of criminal behavior. That's what they're good at. And they can't, just from a political perspective, this is a Pandora's box that Democrats have opened up. Okay, you can't, in Colorado, in Wisconsin, in New York, Michigan, you can't go ahead and just allow these things to take place, because then the genie comes out of the bottle, the Pandora's box is open, and the opposite takes place. Democrats want intimidation. They want to intimidate. Media wants to intimidate. They want to suppress any viewpoint that isn't beneficial to the Democratic Party. That's how they roll, okay? For example, I agree with the cause of why people demonstrated 2 summers ago, okay? I agree with the cause, okay? But I don't agree with $1 to $2 billion in property damage, according to Wikipedia. Could you imagine if Republican-linked organizations or conservative-linked organizations were involved in $1 to $2 billion in property damage? Could you imagine what the media would say about Trump and conservatives and Republicans? Could you imagine? And 19 lives lost, according to Wikipedia, 14,000 arrests, and you had Democratic politicians bailing out demonstrators. I understand the cause. I support the cause, but the cause was not, nothing is worth 19 lives, or even 1 life, or even 1 building set ablaze. You can't do that. And they say, well, it's just property. It's not your property. And so you have this situation, ladies and gentlemen, that is just, it's going to get worse. Unfortunately, if Democrats don't condemn this, and if anything, they're condoning it. By the way, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost at 200,000 subs. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. I will obviously resume segments later tonight and throughout this week. It's going to get a lot worse. I predicted all of this in September on this channel and in September on the Stock Market Crash channel. The segments are below in the description section. Watch diesel prices. Watch the interest rates go up. We're heading into a recession, and we're in a recession, and tell me if the third or fourth quarter is going to be any better. I don't think it will. It's only going to get worse. Bitcoin will get to 10,000 or lower, and I have a Bitcoin Crash channel that I've taken a week off, but I will resume that channel also. If you want to give a super thanks to people who have given super thanks, thank you so very much. I have to thank you, on personally on the comment section, and I will. But thank you so much. If you want to give a super thanks to this segment, the super thanks is below, next to the like and the share buttons. FBI is investigating a Christian pregnancy center in Colorado that was set ablaze and vandalized with pro-choice messages hours after Roe ruling. Okay, a Colorado pregnancy center was set ablaze and vandalized Saturday. Local officials said they are investigating the incident as arson. Okay, so the FBI is now involved. Longmont Public Safety, along with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is investigating the fire as arson. Officials are also requesting any information from the public, including tips and video, in connection with the incident. So, this happened in the 70s. It didn't work out for the left or Democrats or, liberals or progressives or anyone to the left of the political spectrum. It didn't work out. You're not going to intimidate people into agreeing with you. Doesn't work that way. The only thing you'll get, God forbid, is a reciprocal reaction. Okay? Now, it's interesting. Left-leaning organizations, more so than they have the benefit of media downplaying. Remember that word, downplaying? Nobody downplays criminal activity more than media and Democrats when it's criminal activity of groups linked to their political side. But at a certain point, these organizations, first of all, are already infiltrated because the Bureau and Homeland and all these government agencies infiltrate these organizations. They always have. But it's going to reach a certain point where Democrats say, oh, you have crossed the line. Then, God forbid, there could be a point where a reaction or a reciprocal force from opposing organizations then get involved. And so, why would you want that? This is like everything they said about Trump. Oh my God, he's a tyrant, he's an authoritarian, he's undermining democracy. Authoritarians and tyrants use media, they use intelligence agencies, they use corporations, all for their political purposes. Each one of the institutions or, everything I just mentioned is against Trump. So he might not be a nice person in the eyes of many, although he probably is a much nicer person than a lot of the Democrats that liberals worship. But he is not. He's the antithesis of a tyrant and authoritarian. Look at the vandalism and the property damage and the criminal activity linked. Compare the two. Look what's taking place right now. The Supreme Court is... The responsibility of the Supreme Court is literally to uphold rule of law, and rule of law starts with the Constitution and interpreting the Constitution. Okay? There is nothing implicit or within the Constitution that says you can have a certain medical procedure, that everyone must be able to have a certain medical procedure. Now, that goes to the states. Then you have to go ahead and now convince people that you are right. The pro-choice argument is right. Okay? You have to convince people of that. But the Democrats don't want to do that. They just want to intimidate. And the thing is, you cannot intimidate. You cannot intimidate because it's a Pandora's box of problems. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. The FBI is involved, and these organizations think they're impervious. It's like, no, that the Bureau already put away a great many left-leaning organizations in prison, and that was in the 70s, and they'll do so again. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Thank you so very much. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Subscribe to the Stock Market Crash and Bitcoin Crash channels right now.